On today's episode of Let's Grow Together, I talk with branding expert Chris Beltran. And this was really just such an awesome conversation. Chris is a great friend of mine. We talk very regularly. And, even though he is the branding, king, and we talk a little bit about branding in the beginning of the episode, we actually dive deep into a number of different things and how he's been an introvert and how he's kind of get out of his comfort zone and talking about different things that create new nuances in your life and different things that you can create in your life to be happier and build a better life for yourself, and different things that he's done to help himself. And there's just so many deep underlying positive messages that we uncover in this episode. And so I just know that you're going to get a ton of value, both from a branding standpoint, but also from another aspect of living your best self, creating good habits that are going to set yourself up for success and achieving your goals. So let's dive in, but first, the intro. Welcome to Let's Grow Together. My name is Nick Monotadibus, motivational speaker and digital marketing strategist. And this podcast is all about helping you grow both in life and business. Let's dive in. All right, we are here. Let's grow together, and I am so excited for this guest. We've had a lot of good times in before all of this craziness was happening. But very, very excited to welcome the one and only Chris Beltran. So welcome, Chris.
Hey, man. Happy to be here.
Thank you for joining me. So real quick, just tell us a little bit about, who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Sure. Yeah. So, like you said, I'm Chris Beltran, and I'm really looked at as a branding, rebranding expert. So I help businesses really define their identity, their brand's identity in their space, so that they can start to attract their ideal clients and really set the tone for the expectations of what their business is all about. And I really help, a lot of personal brands, but also small businesses and mid-sized businesses. So really there's no set range, but, my heart is really helping entrepreneurs or businesses on the rise, because I think they need the most help. So that's kind of where I like to focus my attention.
Yeah, and I think it's so awesome hearing you talk. And we met at the Kajabi Summit, which was awesome. Filled with tons of speakers, and we both are advocates of Kajabi, and then more connection with the Wedmore crew. Which anybody who's been listening, I feel like I've mentioned James Wedmore in every single episode, but for obvious reasons. But he's awesome. And it's interesting because I think that there's a lot to be said. And from what I've been seeing with you, and I'd love to shift this and kind of go in this direction a little bit, in that, when people think of their brand, and a lot of times recently you've been discussing about how, brands are not just your logo, it's so much more than that, and how much, a brand is part of your identity. So like, how important from, almost like not just a person, it's kind of a personal development side, but a personal development, but also a business side of how that kind of reflects into, what you're trying to accomplish within your personal brand, business brand, just what you do, and how important it is to understand yourself, I guess, is where I'm getting. Does that make sense?
So as far as like your own personality, kind of how that plays a part of your business, or is that kind of where you're going?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think, just like a person, a brand has its own personality. And especially with personal brands, if we're talking specifically about personal brands, you really have to infuse some of your personality into your business and into your brand. And I guess what we really take from our personalities is really our values. And that's what we really implement in our businesses. And that's what I see a lot of successful businesses do, integrity, honesty, things like that. And infusing that into your business will definitely set you up for success. So is that kind of what you're talking about? Hopefully that's
Yeah,
answered somewhat of your question.
yeah, no, and I think it's just making people think a little bit more into like what their brand means to them, and um how they portray their brand.
Mm.
Um
Yeah, well, I look at it as, branding's really like the love language of your business, right? And so again, kind of looking at what are some pieces of you that you can incorporate into your brand, and really what a brand is, because I think this is something that's kind of generalized a lot in business, right? And that's usually the last thing on one's priority list is branding. It's kind of like, I got to get the software, I got to get the systems, I got to get clients, so there's all these things that you want to get before you even start thinking about branding. But the way I look at branding is really the first thing that you should be focusing on, because you want to set a foundation for your business. And so again, kind of going back to that, branding really sets the expectations of what your business is going to provide, right? And I think if you have great branding, people can expect a great experience.
Love it. Yeah, great experience. And that's, again, that's the what you want to be able to reflect. Now, if somebody was like just starting, how would you recommend to somebody, getting started within their brand or finding their brand identity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think mainly you want to start to identify what are these core aspects of your brand, right? What do you want to look and feel like? And what I always start with is what I call trigger words. So just words. How would you describe this in just words? Simple words, right? So are we modern? Are we vintage? Are we natural, holistic? Just writing down a list of words, then we can start to bring those words to life with visuals. And that's where you would want to put together like a mood board or something that you can reference before you start hiring a designer and things like that.
Gotcha. Mood board. So, what is a mood board?
So a mood board is basically like uh, and I like to use Pinterest. So a mood board is basically a collection of images that, again, set the tone for what you're trying to, the emotions that you're trying to have here. So like, I basically would have a mood board for specific categories like colors. So inside that mood board, I would start pinning a bunch of different images that say we're looking at a doctor's office, for example, right? Or dentist. You're not going to be posting or pinning or collecting a bunch of images that have red, because if you're a dentist, red's not probably the best color for you to be using. Um, but so again, going back to the trigger words, if we look at, okay, well, we want to show that we're fresh, purity. Um, we want to show that we're modern and clean and things like that, right? Well, if you start looking for images that relate to those words, we can look at, fresh. Maybe there's a mint green that you can start to pin, or blues, cool blues, and things like that. So now you're starting to, again, align the images to the words that really describe the look and feel of your brand.
Gotcha. It's so much more complex. It's such a funny thing that I think most people don't really think about when it comes to branding. I think that this is one of the more, it's one of those things that I feel people think they know branding and they really don't. Do you agree?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think branding in the business world is very generalized. So there's not a lot of clarity around what branding is and how important it is and things like that. But if you look at really successful businesses, they invest heavily into their branding, right? The image of their brand, of their business. So there's got to be a good reason for that. And the reason is that it really starts, you're basically, I look at, branding like also like a book. You have the cover, which is your visual side, your logo, colors, patterns, things like that, fonts. But you can't design the cover of a book without knowing the story. And so the story of your brand is really where you need to start, right? How you start to describe the core values, what's your stance in the marketplace, what are you promising, then you can start to bring those words to life, those ideas to life with visuals. So I think a lot of people think branding is mainly visual, and that's, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions, because it really isn't. There's messaging and a lot of other things that really make up quote unquote branding.
Yeah, it's almost like it's hidden behind the scenes a little bit. It's more than just using the same colors and using the same font. There's so much more in the hidden messages of how you're making people feel. And you talked about your story a little bit, or having a story. So let's dive into that a little bit more. So
Sure.
like, what's your story? How did you begin this entrepreneur journey? What kind of got you started in the branding world, and kind of how you've transitioned to where you are today?
Yeah, so I started probably like most people in the corporate world as a creative director for an 8-figure drinkware promotional company. So basically, what that is they would print logos on drinkware, like water bottles, glasses for the NFL, TV shows, all this type of stuff. So it was really cool to see, how basically everywhere I went, I started to see these bottles, and I was like, hey, we did that. Um, but I started designing their ads and really everything that had to do with their brand, right? The branding side of their business. And I started to see, coming out of college, the impact that I was having with being very intentional with the branding. Um, they started to, their confidence level just started to explode. So they started to do a lot more things in their business than they probably would have before. And that's kind of like definitely a benefit of being more intentional with your branding. You become more confident, and when you're more confident, you kind of show up more in your business than ever. So that's kind of where I started, just understanding how intentional branding really affects the impact of what you're doing in your business. And then I started listening to a lot of podcasts like this, Pat Flynn, James, and stuff like that, in the office. And I'm like, you know what, there's a shift I feel I need to make personally, and that's helping other small businesses, right? I can use the big brand strategies and help them grow their business by being intentional with their branding. So I started going to conferences just like, Kajabi and stuff like that. And I really feel like I was in your place, many years ago, as far as like learning and meeting new people in this online world. And something just told me, hey, this is what you need to do. This is your calling in a way. So just started meeting a lot of personal brands and people building their businesses online. And as I started becoming, you know, more aware of the need of branding, that's when I basically quit my job and went all in with helping smaller businesses, become more intentional with their branding.
So awesome. It's such a, it's always cool to hear those unique stories of how people, kind of get started and get that shift. And to me, there's always these like other influences, like you said, these podcasts. And I'm kind of curious to kind of shift it a little bit into how, you know, personally, or things that you incorporated that helped you, or habits per se, that kind of helped you to make this shift and eventually like take the leap to go on your own. Obviously listening to podcasts is one of them. Are there other things that you contribute to being able to make the transition and be successful in your business through different things that you've implemented in your life?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I think one of the things is, becoming an entrepreneur, you definitely have to trust yourself. So you definitely have to build some habits and start doing some things that really exercise that confidence muscle. And I think with gaining more clarity around certain things, you gain confidence. So the more I gain clarity around, oh wow, there's a need in this market space. Wow, this is exactly what I can do to help them. The more clarity I got, the more confidence I got. And kind of, I think one of the habits was, I'm a very, in a way, introverted. So I'm not very, I love being on my computer, designing and things like that. But I knew that I had to make a shift by putting myself out there. so that was kind of one thing I knew I needed to work on was how can I be more extroverted? How can I be more outgoing to share ways that I can help? So that's something that I definitely started to work on by going to conferences, being on podcasts, and really just starting to clarify myself. What was I trying to do, and how can I clearly communicate that to others? Um, and like I said, I've always been entrepreneurial. So, back as a kid, I had my own, what was it, like a snow cone little company. I saw these soccer kids I used to live across the street from a park. So I would see these kids playing on the summer, and I was like, hey, you know what? I think I can, if I make some snow cones, I think instead of the ice cream man coming by, I can, sell some snow cones. And so, kind of, I think a big thing too is, as far as habits goes, look to your past. Look to your past and see where you have succeeded in the past, and see what you were doing at that time, because I think that can really help us start to pave a new path when we're looking to try something new. It's like, look at your past. What were you doing in the past that really helped you become successful in whatever you're doing there? And going back to that, I realized, hey, I saw a need. The other thing is I start to connect with those customers on such an emotional level, because I was a kid. They're a little older than me, but we kind of had the same interests and same language. And so going back to that experience, I wanted to, I guess in a way I was looking at how can I pull that into today for me, and speaking that language with customers today, and just connecting with them on that emotional level, I think has really helped me succeed in with what I'm doing.
That's awesome. Making snow cones at an early age. And I've heard similar stories like that too. It's fascinating to hear how some people have gotten started at such an early age. And, one of the things that you mentioned, like you're going to conferences, you're talking with different people, and you're, kind of becoming more extroverted. Were there anything specifically that you did to kind of become more extroverted? Because I know that's something that a lot of people that are introverted struggle with, kind of being more extroverted. I feel I'm an introvert, but I'm like very in the middle and more on the extroverted side. Because again, it is kind of a scale. It's not like black and white. But if somebody was, introverted, is there anything that you did to help kind of overcome that and step out of your comfort zone a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. One of them was definitely going to Tony Robbins event, right? That was a game changer for me. But also listening to a lot of different audiobooks that speak on that topic, and trying things. I think the biggest things for someone that's introvert is we like our habits, we like our space, we like, we kind of like consistency. And I think once you start pushing that boundary a little bit, trying some things that are new, you start to automatically become a little more extroverted, right? Like going to a conference, I can go back to my hotel room. Well, no, I'm going to meet one person today or two people. So just kind of always setting up little assignments, I guess, for myself. And growing up too, my parents always pushed me and put me into things that I didn't really want to be in. But once I was in there, I succeeded and I did really well. So I kind of look at that as well as like, it might be tough right now, but once you get moving, it becomes a lot easier, and you're going to enjoy it. So I think just having that mindset of, this is new, but I know in the end, I'm going to enjoy this. This is going to be a story. This is going to be something I'm going to really enjoy. So kind of looking at it like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, taking the one small step forward into, being uncomfortable and then finding that you enjoy it. Now you mentioned Tony Robbins. What event was that? When was this?
That was man, what was that? I don't know. I don't remember what year that was. It was probably about five years ago. Unleash the Power Within.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but and that was something that we heard. My fiance and I actually went together, and we heard this was a game changer for so many people. So many successful people went to this event. So I was mainly curious, and it is definitely a unique experience. You're walking on fire, not eating for hours and hours, these very long, long days. But in the end, I think the big takeaway for me was that um, you can set your state, right? You can set your mental state before you approach something. And at the time, I actually started a mobile marketing agency. And I worked with golf courses. So I was helping them use text marketing. So I had to be on the phone a lot. And this was something I didn't really want to do. But after that event, I reset my state, and my business started to grow. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, once you start to try something new and do it long enough, you start to enjoy it. And I think that's one of the biggest things as far as entrepreneurs. You need to really understand, like, we're going to be trying a lot of new things. We're going to be pivoting and evolving. So we just got to get used to that and start to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then, the more that you can kind of try new things, the more you're going to kind of figure out and really hone in on your skill set. And you mentioned, and because I think Tony Robbins is awesome. I haven't been to Unleash the Powers Within, but I have kind of got like a small taste of it at a different event. And you were kind of touching on it a little bit, where he was talking about you controlling your emotional state. And I to me, that's like the thing that stuck with me a lot, and I try and share with other people. But I'd love to hear kind of your perspective on that particular topic. um Aside from prepping yourself for doing things like phone calls, are there any other things in your life where that kind of philosophy helped you?
Absolutely. I think mainly this is called emotional intelligence. And there's actually a book called Emotional Intelligence that I read in the past. But what that basically means is that you're kind of aware of your emotions at a certain time. And if you can start to become more aware of that, you're not going to be reactive, you're going to be responsive. And as entrepreneurs, business owners, the more that we can be responsive rather than reactive, um, we're going to have better outcomes, right? So if we're emotionally charged by somebody or something, we're going to typically make bad decisions because we're emotionally engaging in this thing rather than taking a step back and kind of looking at, okay, I know this is the situation right now, but what's the effect of my decision? What's the consequence of this? And so, with Tony Robbins and things like that, kind of looking at what state are you in and how is that going to affect your decisions? And I think that's something that was one of the biggest takeaways for me from the event.
Yeah, and being able to change your state, and having that choice.
And what's crazy is I just listened to a podcast from Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, and they're talking about this too. And they're basically saying we're changing our state all the time. When we put on our favorite music, when we eat food, when we go exercise, we're always really changing our state. And those states, last. It's basically determined on how much you're aware of that state. So I think, waking up, putting on your favorite music, meditating, journaling. I know you journal and stuff like that. So it's, you're kind of setting the tone and creating that state before you start your day. And that's just so important.
Exactly. I love it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of journaling, and I think setting the day with gratitude, which anyone who's listening knows that I'm a broken record when it comes to talking about that. But I would love to hear some of your kind of habits in the morning that you implement to help you set you up for this for success.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, before I go to bed, it's kind of funny. Like, before I go to bed, I don't have the same breakfast every day. So I kind of use that as a motivator to wake up and to be happy in a way. So it's kind of like, oh man, today I'm going to make a tofu scramble with, hash browns. And already before I go to bed, I'm already like, oh my God, I can't wait to wake up. So I'm kind of using my breakfast to really get me excited about waking up, and I know I'm going to have my coffee, and so just kind of envisioning that state that I'm going to be in when I wake up in the morning is definitely helps me get out of bed. um, a couple other things is, I'm not as consistent as I want to be, but with yoga and And just having a meaningful conversation with my significant other, I think really sets us up to approach the day with gratitude, but also with insight and awareness. So if you can wake up and have a conversation with someone, I think that, a meaningful conversation, I think that kind of just gets the ball rolling inside your mind as far as, being grateful and being aware of what's to come for you and things like that. I guess the other thing would be looking at your tasks for the day and kind of, I use this app called Commit to 3. It's a free app. And basically it allows you to type in 3 things that you're going to do for that day. Not a whole list, just 3 things. And what I like about that, it allows me to just focus on the 3 most important things for the day. And then when you do it, when you complete that task, you just tap it and it makes a little check mark. And then when you do all 3, it kind of like shakes your phone and, hey, you're done for the day. So I like that because I kind of use that as like, morning, afternoon, and evening, trying to set up, 3 tasks that I need to complete for the day. And, every day you're not going to check off every single one. And I think one thing is when you're setting up new habits or anything like that is not to get down on yourself for not accomplishing every single goal that you set out to do, because it's almost impossible. And, some days you are, some days you're not. And I think that ebb and flow for an entrepreneur is very important. Just being aware of that ebb and flow, because, once you get down on yourself, if you're not able to get out of that state as quickly as you would like, you kind of keep going down that rabbit hole of negativity and doubt and things like that. And, we all go through that. Everyone from the Elon Musk to where we're at, it doesn't matter who you are, we're all going to face some doubt and negativity. So I think just kind of giving yourself some grace, some understanding. Hey, look, I didn't complete it today. I'm going to move that over to tomorrow, and I'll finish that tomorrow. But obviously there's some important tasks that you need to complete on a specific day, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's interesting that it's kind of funny that you mentioned the commit to 3, because the last the last episode talked about rule of 3, where she has like 3 tasks and everything's set in the number of 3, which I thought again was just interesting that you pointed that out. And there's something to be said too. You mentioned checking things off, because I have a similar thing. My sleep app has like basically they're my sleep notes on like what I did that day, and so I can determine how that affects my sleep. But really what I've started to use it as, and I don't know if it's necessarily, is like it's the similar thing where I'm checking off all the things. So it's like, did I exercise today? Did I read today? Did I meditate today? And so I have this list. No cheat foods. That's a thing. And so I'm like checking the things off, and it's crazy because of that actual checking of things off. I make the decisions to do those things because I subconsciously like want that. I want to check it off at
Right.
night. It's like, it's a weird
Yeah.
thing. And they talk about this in Atomic Habits too. It's like, there's something to be said about checking it off, and, there's a previous guest that was talking about, he's got a whiteboard. He checks things off. It's such an interesting kind of habit. But I do want to touch on something that you talked about that I think is so awesome, and how you mentioned your breakfast and how that's how you like set the intention for the following day, because that's unique. So I feel like it's important to focus on that. And I think it's so awesome because there is some similarities in things that I do. I think it's so important. Like, people don't realize how much your nightly intention really sets up the next day. Like, if you want to have a good day, it starts the night before, like before you go to sleep. Is
Right.
it, so like, I love that you're like thinking about breakfast. It's anybody who's a breakfast fan lover has got to like love you. Like, oh, Chris, you're the man. Like, love breakfast. But like, is there anything else? So like, how does that, I'd like, just, I don't know if there's more to that. Do you have more to that to add?
Well, it's funny because during this time of the recording, we're in kind of like this quarantine, stay at home type of deal because of because of this virus. And I think with this time right now, we're looking a lot of we're looking for a lot of ways that can uh, motivate us, right? Excite us, and how can we make this time more enjoyable? So really, at the start of this time, my fiance was, home from work, and so I was like, we were cooking a lot of breakfast and trying new things, and that was exciting for me, and it just kind of became a natural thing. Like, what are we cooking tomorrow? What's on the menu for tomorrow's breakfast? And I think I started to recognize, wow, I am so excited about tomorrow's breakfast that I can't wait to go to bed and get up to make this. Um, so that kind of happened naturally, but I also started to see, when you do have something planned for the morning, like a trip, right, or a vacation, something that I got to get up. I don't usually get up this early, but I'm going to get up at 4 or 5 a.m. so I could be at the airport and do this, because I know once I get to Hawaii, I'm going to have a great time. So kind of using that, I guess that strategy is, again, looking at that state that you're going to have, and kind of just using that to motivate you to wake up early or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think an important part that you talked about too is like, I think part of the breakfast thing is like you're trying new things for breakfast.
Right.
And you've almost simplified something that like people take for granted in things of just like, how can we add new things to our life? It's like cook new things for breakfast in the morning. Like that's exciting. That's new. Like that's something to try new things. Like, wow, can it really be that simple to try new things, to just like do something different for breakfast every single day? Like, why not? You're trying something new. I think that that's a big aspect of just trying something new. Do you agree?
Yeah, and there's studies that show that when you do try new things, um, you're kind of building new synapses in your mind, right, in your brain. You're really helping your brain grow and to make better connections, stronger connections. So, I've heard on different podcasts and books, if you're driving home from work, try a different way. Try something new every day. That's going to help you really exercise your brain muscles. And I guess kind of knowing that, and trying this every day, and it's not like we're trying, 360 new breakfasts. I don't want to make it seem like we're trying a new breakfast every single day, but we're looking at trying something new. And then when we like that thing, it's like, cool, I look forward to that. Let's make that next week, and you don't even have to plan out your breakfast for the whole week. It's just, even if it's just the night before, hey, last or last morning we made, you know, I don't know, yogurt, granola, and fruit. Tomorrow, let's try a smoothie. The next day, let's try, a bagel with some superfoods or whatever. So, you can just kind of tweak it as you go. And so I don't want to make it seem like I have my whole life planned out as far as breakfast goes.
Yeah, no, no, and I get it, and I totally understand. And I can relate. Like this past weekend, I had I had made it a point, so I ordered like groceries. And it's like a custom pack. So it comes with a bunch of different stuff. It's not necessarily stuff that I normally would buy. And one of the things is like potatoes. I just don't normally buy potatoes. And so, when the weekend was approaching, I was like, I cannot wait. I'm gonna make some home fries in the morning, like Saturday morning breakfast, and I was like looking forward to that, and it was
Yep.
delicious. I had onions, cut it up, and it's just such a funny concept again, because it's, who knew that that's actually what I did recently, where I was actually getting excited about just little things, of just, and I think there's deep underlying things here, not
Right.
just like, oh, cook a different breakfast every day. That's not what this message is about. The message
Right.
is like you can find the joy in little things like changing up your breakfast. It's just something so small in how you can change things to add new things and feel a new way.
Well, just like you said, for the weekend. And that's actually what we typically do is we look forward to breakfast on the weekend, right? Because we're going to get up later and we're going to maybe go somewhere, things like that. But it's usually on the weekend that we look forward to breakfast. So I guess in a way, I'm kind of, what we were doing is kind of looking at, how do we do this every day? I want to feel like this. I want to feel like it's the weekend every day. So that's kind of where that came from. And I suggest, you guys try it.
Love it. Yeah, and when you have something to just tweak and change and create, new experiences, and obviously, and that's like something too where you're utilizing it with your fiance. So it's like something that you're doing together that you're looking forward to, and how you can, incorporate these things, um, you know, into your new things, new exciting things.
Mhm.
So let's shift a little bit. I want to kind of transition a little bit more into, you talked about your morning routine a little bit, but I'd like to hear a little bit more if you have more to share on kind of, you know, are there things that you do? Because you mentioned I do journaling. Do you do any journaling in the morning?
So I don't do as much as I would like to, and I did in the past, and I think I just kind of got off that track. Um, but I'm definitely more in the meditative habit. I guess I kind of lean more towards meditating and kind of doing that more in my mind than on paper. But I definitely know the benefits of journaling, and my fiance does. She man, she has like books and books and books or journals filled of journaling. And I guess because I see her doing it, I'm kind of like, oh well, I'm going to do something else right now. So, but as far as like doing mindful things in the morning, meditation, music, I think is a really underestimated tool for your morning. Um, and so that's one thing that I definitely do is playing music that really changes my state, right? If we're cooking breakfast, put on some good music, and you can be dancing to when you're cooking and things like that. Or meditative music, things like that. So I think music, it really helps us get into a state that we want to enjoy. So that's definitely something I do in the morning, evening, and night. I'm just always listening to music that will elevate my state. Um, as far as the morning goes, like I said, with that app and just kind of looking at actually, I do that at night, the night before. I kind of put down all the tasks I'm going to do for the next day.
Hmm.
Um, but what I do in the morning is I will review it and kind of look at how those things make me feel. And I'm like, oh, maybe I might want to change this out because this isn't as urgent or whatever. But I also use, it's called wall mates. Basically, it's kind of like a wall organizer, dry eraser type of thing.
Okay.
And it has each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day of the week. And inside those, I write down more tasks. So if I get down with those three, I definitely have more that I need to do. So I kind of always go back to that board. Um, but yeah, as far as morning goes, it's I like to keep the morning very simple, right?
Yeah, I think again, honing in on some of the more unique things that you're sharing. I think that music is something that a lot of people aren't necessarily incorporating, or that is a little different. I do listen to music too, but my mornings a lot of times are more like podcast or audiobook focused. So I love the idea of incorporating music into changing your state. Is there certain music that you listen to? You got playlists that you set up that are specific to kind of getting you in that state?
Um, yeah, most of the time I like to explore a lot of music too. So kind of listening to artists I like, and then what are some suggestions from either Apple Music or Amazon, whoever, Spotify, doesn't matter what service you're using. They typically have some good suggestions. Um, but yeah, I do have some go-tos as well. Like it again, just like food or anything else. If you know there's certain things that are going to put you in a certain state, just be aware of that and use those as your go-to. So there's a couple like meditative songs I like to listen to in the morning. I also like cooking with music that kind of resembles the type of food I'm cooking. This might be kind of weird, but by making Mexican food, I like to have some kind of like Spanish flavor music, and just kind of sets the tone and or if I'm making Italian, right? Listening to Italian, and just kind of, again, it's weird, but it definitely puts you, takes you out of the space you're in and puts you into another space. And if you go to a restaurant, same thing, right? You're in an Italian restaurant, they have Italian music typically. So I'm kind of doing that as well. Um, so that's kind of funny, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think that's awesome because it goes back to what we were talking about before, where it's almost like you're trying new things in regards to like the music and how if you're experimenting on new music, it gets you to think different ways, to feel different ways,
Hmm.
and I think that that's an important aspect. And like you mentioned, we're in the virus right now, and I feel that this virus has made a lot of people think differently and feel differently in some ways, good ways,
Right.
kind of like woke people up to just like, whoa, there's so much more going on here. I got wrapped up in my routine of what I've always done. Do you feel that you've like noticed that or seen that? I know, we own online businesses, so we weren't as affected as some other people, but I'd love to hear kind of your experience in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, with this time right now, with most people being home, most people slowing down, most people actually having the time and space to look within and to kind of be aware of more things, because when you are busy, you're not aware of much. You're kind of focused on, your work and coming back home and enjoying that and then going to bed, and you're waking up. So you're in this really fast paced cycle that doesn't allow much awareness, right? So I think during this time, having that additional time, or feels like you have more time, right? It's not like I've changed my complete schedule, because I've always been kind of working from home in a way. So, but I think just the energy has shifted, and I think feeling that energy and kind of, oh wow, like, I could, since my parents are home and whatever, I'm going to call them more often, or you know what I mean. There's just some things that have shifted around you, and just kind of being aware of that and how you can start to, um, I guess in a way, just incorporate that more into your life. I've actually started picking up the guitar more now than I ever have. And yeah, I see your guitar back there, the acoustic. And I used to play all the time when I was younger. And for whatever reason, I'm probably thinking, oh, I don't have time, And, but now it's like, oh, I'm going to learn this song. I'm going to do, and that enjoyment that I've had by picking the guitar back up and playing is now like a new addiction of fulfillment. And I think that's something that this time really gives us, is like, what's that new, it's a good addiction, what's that new addiction that we can gain, that's going to give us more fulfillment, more joy, and things like that. And it's the little things for sure. And I like to look to my past for those little clues, I guess. Hey, I used to play guitar, I used to love that, I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to try. Yeah. And then it's like, whoa, it's like riding a bike. You're back in, you might not be as good as you were, but the enjoyment that you get from it is pretty much the same. So I think that's what this time has really given us, is just an opportunity to be more aware of what really fulfills us, and paying attention to that and leaning into that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've done the same thing too. Yeah, during this time, like picking up my guitar and playing in it, and it kind of does come back to you a little bit into just it's so easy to get wrapped up in everything and focused on all these things. And you know, I think that this is going to allow people to realize that like they can be in this slower state at all times. When things get back to normal, it doesn't mean that have to speed things up again. It's a choice to move slower, like it shouldn't like why not?
Exactly. And I think slow, at least in the US, kind of means, you're unproductive, or you're not producing as much as you should be. But I think it's quite the contrary. It's like when you are able to be aware and to be more productive, hyper focused on things in a shorter amount of time, you get more done. I mean, it's just proven with a lot of different uh, researches and things like that. And that's something I've learned just from working at home. You know, working in the corporate world, you're in an office for 8 hours a day. It's like, how much work do you really get done? Are you at the computer typing away for 8 hours a day? Or are you getting up, going to the coffee, getting coffee, coming back, getting lunch? Oh, I got to go to the bathroom. Oh, you met so-and-so in the hallway. And there's a lot of time that is not being used productively, but we don't talk about that, you know? And so when I started working from home, I really started to feel guilty as far as how much I worked. I was like, wow, I work for half amount of the hours and I don't, but I'm getting more done. I don't get what's going on here. It was kind of confusing. Um, and then you know, start reading books like you said, Atomic Habits and all these different books, and they start to shed light on, hey, look, when you're hyper focused, you get more things done. And so it's not really about slowing what you're doing. It's kind of just about how can you use this time more effectively? How can you really be more intentional with your time? And maybe that's what you're kind of looking at or talking about as far as slowing down. It's just being more intentional with your time. And man, I will say that when you are more intentional with anything in your life, um, things become a lot easier. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think, you know, like you're saying, with the way that time, allows you, and all of a sudden you feel like you have, people say they have more time right now. But it's also about the activities that you're filling your time with. And a lot of times people just have filler filler time. And, like you said, there's all these studies that say that, working more than 40 hours a week actually decreases your productivity, and that you can work half the hours and produce twice the results. And so that's kind of like hmm, there's something here that, like, hey, you didn't play your guitar, but what if playing your guitar actually made you generate more revenue? Like, that's very possible, in that you playing guitar allows you to, like, free your mind, clear your head, and then you go back to work and you're like, oh yeah, all right, I'm gonna do this, and then you're like laser focused because you just took a break and just like played guitar for 10 minutes. And
Exactly. Yep.
yeah, I think it's such a huge part in realizing that the not working is just as important as the working.
Yeah, man. And I think one thing, this might be for you too, but one thing I've definitely noticed, and I'm very introspective person, so kind of always looking at, you know, how things are affecting me, and just being aware of that, and probably through meditation and going to these conferences and reading books and things like that, you kind of start to pay attention more to what you're doing and why you're doing things. But I will say that being home with somebody too, and just kind of feeling like you do have more time, I do see myself being on my phone more. And one thing I started to notice is going on social media, checking my email, reading the news, not trying to read the news all the time, but you know, just checking in, things like that. When I come out of that, come out of like looking at all these things, and you're not on the phone for like 1 minute. You're there, you can get sucked in, right? Going from social media to email to news back to social media, you know, whether that's 10 to 20 to 30 minutes or whatever. When I come out of that, I'm like brain dead, dude. I'm like, man, my head, I'm fried. I can't work right now. Like I am literally, my brain is fried. And that is something that until recently I started to realize. I think a lot of people feel in their work that they may be doing busy work, that they're being productive, but it can be something like being on social media and checking your email. It's called context switching, where you're kind of going back and forth with all these different things, and then you feel completely drained. So you can't be effective after all that. And so once I started to realize, wow, like it's kind of like binge watching TV. After that, you're like, I just want to go to bed, or you know what I mean? You're not really energized to do something. And it's the same thing with what we have with us every day, which is our phone. And so I just kind of want to put that out there. It's like, even though it feels like we have more time, we may be feeling like we're more productive. When we get sucked into a device or something that really doesn't energize us, it's going to be a lot harder to be productive and ultimately be successful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's a great point of just understanding that the technology that we have and the things that we use are all influencing us at different times and affecting our mood. I mean, we talked about your emotional state and how, what you're looking at on social media could potentially change your state. You could be listening to this music and everything's going great, and then all of a sudden you break it by going onto your phone, and now all of a sudden you've lost that flow,
Mm,
and just that,
right.
like, you're actually more productive if you just do it. I know Brendan Bouchard talks about in just like 15-minute sprints. So it's like 50 minutes, you focus on one thing, you take a 10-minute break, 50 minutes, take a 10-minute break, and you can go on your phone during that time, but like, don't go on your phone during the 50 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
And that's tough for a lot of people, especially when it's our habit to just like take it out and look at it. I'm sure you've done this where you like take out your phone and you go into an app and you're like, I didn't even think about doing that. My brain just did it.
Well, it is an addiction. I mean, that it's becoming an extension of us too. Elon Musk talks about this. We're basically cyborgs because our phones are really a part of us, and when we don't have it, we freak out. And I know I do that. Sometimes it's like, "Whoa, where's my phone?" Start patting your pocket, and you kind of freak out a little bit. It's like, wow, that's how addicted we are to our devices. And yes, we need it for work and things like that. For us, we're creating content on our phones and things like that. Like I said, once we get sucked in and just keep going in that rabbit hole, down that rabbit hole, man, I don't feel great at all. When I come out of that, I'm just like, and my fiance being here, she's always, you're on your phone. You've been on your phone all day, and I'm like, yeah, I'm checking this. We want to justify what we're doing there. And I guess in a way she's helped me kind of realize, wow, I do spend a lot of time not being productive, just kind of getting sucked in, and it really does fry your brain. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've certainly I've justified it myself and like, oh, I teach people social media. So like I need to be on social media regularly, and checking it and engaging on it. And it's not a good way of life. Again, everything is moderation.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, let's wind down a little bit here. I know you mentioned that you've gotten into podcasts and audiobooks. Are there any particular podcasts or books that you like just absolutely highly recommend that have had a huge impact on you?
Oh man, there's so many. I might have to bust out my phone to see which ones I'm currently listening to.
What's the first one that comes to your head when you're like, man, like this is the book I recommend to everybody?
Well, one of my all-time favorites, and this is I have the audiobook, but it's by Jim Rohn, The Art of Exceptional Living. That book is just, oh man, it's like church, not in a religious sense, but it's like, being able to hear great advice to set you up every single day. And that book, I mean, I've listened to that, I don't even know how many times, probably over 10. Um, but it's just positivity reinforced through action that he kind of explains. And it's like, man, this is something that I could listen to every single day. And it has been a book that I have listened to throughout the years many, many times. So that's definitely one. Jim Rohn, The Art of Exceptional Living. Um, if you're looking for more business oriented, with branding, Story Brand is also a great book just to
Mm-hmm.
get familiar with, the importance of your story and branding and things like that. Um, Another one that I highly suggest is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself,
Oh,
uh,
that's a new one. Okay, I haven't heard that one before.
by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And that book really, he really talks about, again, everything's really about awareness. When you're aware of something, you can change it, right? And he kind of looks at, what are some of the habits you're doing? Who are you? And, like Jim Fortin says, the be do have, you got to be the person you want to be. And then you'll start doing the right things, and then you'll have, those things that you're looking to have. So it's kind of like with that book, it's specifically looking at how can you start to evolve yourself to be the best version, and that's by looking at certain things that you're doing and certain habits and things like that. So I highly suggest that one out. And there's a lot of like research and crazy things that they've discovered and stuff like that. So it's really cool to check that out. Let me see if there's any other ones that kind of relate to what we're talking about. I would start with those, man. I think those really, The Miracle Morning is also a good one by Hal Elrod.
Yeah, I
Um,
did a whole episode. Episode 5 is all about the miracle morning, and we talked about checking things off. So I have savers, and I write it down in my journal every day. Write the word savers, and I cross it off. So I don't always check off all the letters, but man, when I look and I like didn't check off like any of them, I'm like, oh, this is bad. But it's so much, but if I'm getting most of them or getting all of them, then I feel so awesome. Like today, 100%. All I need to do today is exercise and journal at the end of the night. And I've knocked them all off because I've already, did my meditation this morning, my affirmations, my visualizations, um, and did my reading and read this morning. So it's like all of these things. Yeah, big fan. Miracle Morning. That's a great one.
yeah, and it's a short read too, so it's not like you have to dive deep with a huge book with that. But yeah, there's a lot of different books. I think that you know, I think mainly it's like when you find a book that triggers you in a way, like Miracle Morning or you know whatever the book's going to be. It's like that's a book you're probably going to read more than once because there's going to be so many nuggets in there that you start to rediscover as you go through different phases of your life. And I think that's why the Art of Exceptional Living for me has just been kind of that gold standard book. It's almost like my personal Bible for business and life. It's just there's just so much in there, and so yeah, he
Yeah,
always
that's
says,
starred right now. That's I have a credit for Audible. That's what it's gonna be. I'm downloading that one. And it's funny because there was someone last week that recommended a book. I already bought it. So I got the physical one from her recommendation, and now this one's going right on my Audible list. I made a joke, and it's true. These book recommendations are for me, really. I hope the listeners are like, yes, all right, more books. Like I try and give people more things to go off of because it's interesting to hear you saying similar books that I have read because then to me it tells the listeners like, hey, this is probably a good one because there's a lot of people that are reading this one. The fact you mentioned Miracle Morning is just a great one, and I've heard that recommended to me before, which is why the Story Brand, man, I read that, I listened to that. I don't know, but I'm probably due for a re-listen to the Story Brand because man, if you have a business, that is a must. That is a
mm,
must book to check out. Like
yep,
very
totally.
good book. Awesome. All right, cool. So lastly, we'll wrap up here. Chris, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you or follow you? Reach out to you.
Yeah, well, you guys can always check out my website. It's chrisbeltran.me. I'm on all the social platforms with the handle It's Chris Beltran. Yeah, come say hi. I use Instagram really to show and Facebook to show a lot of the behind the scenes of projects that I'm working on and providing some branding insights on again, I think branding is one thing that a lot of people kind of overlook. And so I like to use those platforms to really share a lot of my insights and how you can do certain things to really gain more trust with your business and things like that, and set the expectations. That's really the biggest thing about branding. It really sets the expectations for your business. And when people see great branding, they know that they're going to have a great experience. And with poor branding, it's kind of like you don't know what you're going to get. And there's really like those three phases, poor, good, and great. And if you're on that poor, if it doesn't look very intentional, it's Canva hacked, it's generic, you might be attracting clients that you don't really want to be working with at that time. So those are the platforms I would suggest. Check me out, come say hi, and I'd love to get to know you guys.
Love it. Yeah, check him out. He's working with some pretty big brands, some big people. This is a guy you're going to want to check out and follow. And it's been great getting to know you, Chris. I look forward to living a little closer soon enough where we can maybe get together. And I'm sure we'll be hanging out soon at some more events. So I look forward to, continuing our relationship and all that we both achieved together. So thanks so much for being with me today.
Absolutely, Nick. And I just want to say, I appreciate you doing the work that you do, because, it really does inspire and affect people and helping them change their own states and things like that. But, I'm really glad we got to know each other at that event and continue that relationship, because, we communicate, pretty often, right? And I think that has helped us in our own right as far as our business and what we're trying to do, and just being able to connect with someone that has a great heart and is looking to serve rather than just get sales and things like that, really, put you in a position to really grow a lot faster as a person and as a business. So, I appreciate our friendship as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris. That was great. Yeah, this is awesome. And, more good things coming. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And remember, let's keep growing together.
Wait, one more thing. I would first like to say thank you. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this message, please take a moment to write a review. By writing a review, it helps people find this message and helps me help more people. And if you really, really liked it and you think this message could help someone else, take a screenshot, share it on Instagram, and please tag me at Nick J. Boni, NickJBoni, so I can show my appreciation for you. We can all win by helping each other grow. Thank you. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.